Harrington here, folks. Just finished up with a hearing, so you got me in uniform again. 2 episodes in a row. Amazing. All right, look, today I want to talk to you contractors. And I know what you're thinking. Jeff, we took our medicine back in episode 30, remember? Well, actually, that's not true. Episode 30, to be honest, was about how property owners can avoid getting scammed by you. Okay. I know those of you watching this podcast, you're not scam artists. So it's overdue for us to do an episode where we can talk about how you avoid getting ripped off by those that hire you. So let's get it on. Our Practice Makes Perfect is the podcast for business owners and real estate investors, siempre con un cariño especial para los clientes extranjeros. Part 1. Who are we talking about here? All right, so this episode is aimed at you hardworking contractors who get hired, do your work correctly, and then just don't get paid for whatever reason. And we're going to talk about why that sometimes happens. But in this scenario, we have 2 groups of people, the good guys and the bad guys. Let's start with the good guys. It's you contractors. So I'm talking about, roofers, gutter people, pool people, plasterers. You know who you are. Not just people that work on construction, though. Could also be, signs, elevator people. All you who work on land or real property, who sometimes don't get paid, and you know who you are. Continuing this scenario, who would be the bad guys? Well, obviously, it could be homeowners. They call you up and have you paint their home, and then they don't pay you everything that they're supposed to. Okay, could be, but in fact, they're not the worst. Maybe the worst would be general contractors or other subs, because that's, often what you guys are, right? You get your work from general contractors, your subcontractors, or even subcontractors. So now you're forced to deal with a sophisticated party, one that has a very distinct incentive to rip you off. That creates a bit of a snake pit. And that takes us to part 2. So why do I call it a snake pit? Well, for one thing, I don't want to call it a Shark Tank because of that show. It kind of messed up the whole thing. But more to the point, these parties that don't pay your bill, your invoice, they have some perverse incentives. If you were to think about this from a cold calculating perspective, you would have to come to the conclusion that as a property owner or as the general or whomever is, upstream from you, the smart thing for them to do would be to not pay you every time. Why do I say that? Well, because a percentage of you are just going to walk away. You're just going to eat it. Some of you are going to say, well, look, I can go hire a lawyer. Maybe the lawyer will even tell you for that amount of money, it may not be worth it because, I'm going to charge you more than that, and you're throwing good money after bad. Another thing, which is really what prompted this video to begin with, is maybe you didn't do everything you should have done to protect your own interest. What do I mean? Well, obviously, contracts, notice of commencement, all those things that you're supposed to do that under the statutes would give you some nice protections. You haven't done all those things, and then you come to your lawyer with frankly, a crappy case. So when these homeowners or GCs or whomever sense that weakness, well, you're in for it. Now you're really asking them to just rip you off, right? Because there's a good chance you're not going to do anything about it. Even those of you who are going to do something about it, well, they can probably settle for less than the full amount, right? So that's why I say it's an absolute snake pit out there. You guys know that, and you need to protect yourselves. That brings me to part 3, and I'm just going to title this section, You're Killing Me. Dude, you got to stop doing these deals on a handshake. This is America. You can't get away with that. I just explained how all these people that are hiring you already have perverse incentives to rip you off. You can't make it easy for them. Don't look like an easy mark. Now, let me take a half step back here because I don't want to sound tone deaf, right? I wasn't born a lawyer. In my youth, I worked as a carpenter for a while. I was an auto mechanic, an apprentice. My father owned a pest control company, so, I carried those tarps up ladders and tented the homes. So listen, my experience doesn't compare with yours, of course, but I have some idea what it's like out there. Having that experience under my belt and dealing with lots of contractors, on a day-to-day basis, my bosses, my colleagues, let me tell you what your issues are, because I think I can guess. Well, first and foremost, it's about expense, isn't it? You think it's expensive to go to a lawyer, to do things in a formal fashion, get your paperwork all in place. Maybe you don't really understand the process. And for the most part, you've been doing things your way for a long time, and it usually works out. You usually get paid. You just have a quick chat, jump on the job. And if it's not broken, why fix it? let's deal with that one first. Okay, look, lawyers are expensive. Okay, maybe, kind of, but I'm not talking about you retaining my law firm as general counsel, putting us on a monthly retainer, something like that. Look, if you got the business to justify it, that's beautiful, but you don't have to do that. I'm not suggesting that you do that. We can provide you with templates. It's not like you got to pay me for each and every job you do. Let me just give you some fill-in-the-blank forms that you can use over and over again. And then let me ask you this, and be honest. How much does any one job that you get ripped off on cost you? And is that loss greater than what you would pay a law firm just to provide you with some template contracts, provide you with some notices of commencement that could be easily recorded, provide you with some notices of default when people don't pay, just the basic stuff? I would be willing to bet that any one job that you've been screwed on would more than cover that cost. And then here's another thing that you might say. You might say, well, the people that hire me, they, I don't want to scare them off. They could balk. I start hitting them with forms and things like that, and they'll be like, whoa, that's okay. I'll go find somebody else. I'm sure that does happen, but come on, guys. Are those really the clients you want? And if you're here in Florida, there's plenty of work out there. If they're balking because you want to do something in a way that's going to protect your interest, nothing crazy, but just the normal stuff. And that's really the key here. It's just a industry standard way of doing things. If they freak out at that, isn't that really the sign that they're planning to screw you? Now, if there are other reasons why you're reluctant to do things in a more formal fashion, well, I'd love to hear them. Drop me a comment, please, because I actually am curious about it. And I'll be the first to admit that maybe my perspective is skewed too, right? Because when you guys come to me, it's only because things have gone bad. So that's usually what I see. I only see the bad news. I don't see the many, many times that everything goes as planned. That said, there are enough of you coming to me with these cases frequently enough that I know that it's a problem and it breaks my heart, frankly. In conclusion, just two quick things. One, as I mentioned before, just looking like you know what you're doing or that you have a law firm who has your back is going to avoid a lot of these problems. And then two, if you do things in a halfway formal fashion, then you have some very nice statutory protections that come into play. Like if you can lien a property, that's very powerful. You'll almost certainly get paid. And even more importantly, you get your attorney's fees paid for. So rather than coming to me without any paperwork and me not being able to utilize the statutes that are there for your protection and me having to tell you, you may or may not get your fees out of this, it changes everything. It's such a game changer, right? If you come to me with the right paperwork, then you know that you're going to get your fees paid. The other side also knows that they're going to end up paying my fees. And it just puts you in such a better position. So I really think it would be worth your time, guys, just to have a quick consultation with me. Let me tell you just the basic things that you need to protect yourself in these cases and then utilize them on a regular basis. And if you can do that, I really think you can start getting ripped off. Eso es todo por hoy. Recuerda que hablamos español. You know what to do with the likes and the comments and stuff below. Do the honorable thing, and I will talk to you next week.